Hello, everyone. My name is Edwin Anthony, and you are listening to Designstration podcast with Ufot Ubon. Design plus illustration equals Designstration.
Welcome to Designstration podcast with Ufot Ubon.
I forgot to mention, I always have to make sure I find a way to just impute my wife in everything I'm saying, right? My wife is also a huge part of my creative work process.
Wow, that's
I'm
cute.
telling
That's
you.
cute.
And I'm
That's
not
cute.
even kidding. Like, anytime I'm working on something, I always call her, baby girl, come and look at this thing. Does this work?
Some creatives choose a path, others learn to exist between them. This is Edwin Anthony, a multidisciplinary illustrator and visual designer, navigating the space between structure and expression.
You're very expressive with your illustration. That's one thing I love about it. And from an illustrator standpoint, I see it differently. Like nothing holds you back.
His work lives across disciplines, blending the precision of design with the freedom of illustration, creating visuals that are both intentional and expressive.
Digital art is the most expressive form of design I have ever practiced, in my opinion.
I agree.
From client-driven projects to personal explorations, his journey reflects what it truly means to build not just skill, but range.
My niche is basically website design. All I was focused on is making sure that everything looks pretty.
But working across two worlds comes with its own questions about identity, direction, and what it truly means to grow as a creative. In this episode, we explore the work, the process, and the reality of building a career that doesn't fit into one box.
I am a multidisciplinary illustrator and designer.
Press play and step into the process. Design plus illustration equals Designstration. Quick one before we continue. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you can actually watch this episode on YouTube. If you've ever want to put faces to the voices, head over to our YouTube channel to do so. And wherever you're tuning in from, make sure you're following us on all platforms so you never miss an episode. We appreciate you for being part of our community. All the links will be in the description below. Let's get right into the conversation. You are listening to Designstration podcast with Ufot Ubon.
If someone meets you for the first time and they just get to connect with you, particularly someone who has seen your work from Twitter or any other platform, how would you best introduce yourself to them?
So I usually start by telling people my name because some people know me, but they don't really know my name. So I am Edwin Anthony. I am a multidisciplinary illustrator and designer. So I work in various aspects of illustration. But people ask, what is illustration? In layman's terms, I just tell people I make cartoons, depending on your level of expertise or how acquainted you are, right, to the tech field, with the tech space, right? I tell people I make cartoons. And I also tell them, you see the mobile apps you are using, the websites, the social media posts you are engaging with. And basically, or my kind of people are the ones that are in charge of everything that you are looking at. So the fact that you have a screen that is beautiful, a website that is beautiful, you are looking at illustrations of cartoons on platforms. That is basically what I do. All right. So that's what I usually tell people, because I don't want to assume that you are tech savvy and now tell you a lot of things that makes no sense to you. So that's basically what I do.
Yeah. There was a time as well when I used to, it was hard to actually convey what I do, particularly to my mom, and I remember one day I asked her and I was like, what do you think I do? And then she went, well, you draw cartoons. And I'm like, okay, that's fair enough.
That is fair.
That's fair enough. One of the ways I was thinking I could use to explain to, let's say, somebody who's not tech savvy, like you mentioned, was to best explain to them, like, WhatsApp that you use on your phone, and they go, okay, yes, I know WhatsApp. Just telling them, I can design that. But then one of the dangers I find about that is, you going about saying that, Ufot works at WhatsApp, all this kind of things. But that's quite a very unique way you put it. What would you say your work process look like on a weekly basis? How do you get to do things on a weekly basis? Illustrations, product designs, all of the whole visual design. How's your week scheduled like?
So first of all, I don't I don't like to identify as a product designer
Oh,
again.
wow.
I've left product design for people who have the energy. All
Yeah.
right. So that's why I reinvented myself to be a visual designer,
Wow.
right? And so my week can be like a bit chaotic, but I'm going to give you like the multiple layers of the
Okay.
chaos, right? So, but I spend a lot of time looking at references. That is being an illustrator, for example, or even a designer. So I have on my X, right? I have like multiple segmented folders, illustration, design. I might even segment them further depending on the projects that I'm working on. So I spend a lot of time looking at references. I can like it's unhealthy.
Yeah.
It's actually unhealthy,
Wow.
right? So I have a separate Instagram that I have a series of illustrators that I look up to, and I just follow all of them there.
Wow.
So when I know that anytime I get like to that Instagram, I'm just seeing beautiful illustrations. So whenever I see people asking me, telling me, "Ah, your work is great," I'm like, "You never come my Instagram, or you've not been on my Instagram." You understand? Like,
Yeah.
so if you go to my Instagram, you will not tell me this thing you are telling me, right? So I actually have spent a lot of time looking at references so that I will build a vast mental library, because I want a situation that if I'm caught unaware, right, I can just pull up something. So that is one of the first things the things I do all through the week. Number two, I will usually find myself posting a lot, because you might be asking for work,
Yeah.
right? But these things I'm seeing, they actually relate directly or indirectly to my work. I find myself posting a lot and doing a lot of work that is not client based, right? Because I want to again make sure I have a proper mental library, and I also want to make sure that I have like my work going out there. Then the third thing, which now gets to the work part, right? So this is my work again is a bit chaotic, but I spend time looking at references, right? Working on client projects. So the way I usually will handle client projects is that I don't like to take multiple projects, a lot of projects at the same time,
Okay.
because it cuts my creative. So I take like at most maybe 2 projects at a time. So I find myself interchanging between projects. If I have creative block, or I'm having like a block on one project, I leave that project, go to another project and start working. And if I'm noticing that I'm also having issues like with work, and I've tried maybe resting and coming back, I reach out to a lot of friends, both friends in the illustration space, friends in the design space, and I show them the work I'm doing. Give me feedback. What do you think can be done better? If you were to handle this project, how do you think you'll do it? Then a lot of that, when I now get to the point, which I actually never really get to the point where I'm satisfied with my work, to be honest.
Yeah.
But if I get to the point where I know I don't have energy to fight anymore, I then will. But there are also deadlines. So all of these things I'm saying is within the deadline that I have. So I make sure I segment my time appropriately to make sure that all of this, I have enough time for this. Then I usually will have client meetings, sometimes 2 times, 3 times a week. And some clients, we don't necessarily have meetings. I just send them the file and say, good. I even had a client I worked for that the first time I heard his voice was on the second project that we're working on. He never had any calls. Not, it was just text. Okay, I sent you your money. Okay, check the Figma file, drop the comment. And that is also, that's basically how my week is. A bit chaotic, but just so that I spend 70% of that time looking at references. That's what I do the most.
Wow.
Yeah, so thank you.
That's actually beautiful. That's beautiful. Yeah, reference are a big part of my own personal creative process as well. Right. Just digesting, just feeding my eyes with really good designs, you know. I didn't hear you mention Pinterest.
Yeah.
Do you like really use Pinterest as well?
Do I use Pinterest? Yeah, so that is true. I didn't mention Pinterest.
Yeah.
I use Pinterest a lot for illustration, right? Because so I was having a call a while ago with an illustrator that is getting popular on X, right? And he was surprised that while I was explaining him my process and I was showing him that I was doing all of it without looking at any reference. That's like my mental library is quite huge that I can draw like entire illustrations without looking at the reference. So for example, I did an Easter series like last week. I don't know if you saw the series, right? Like a vast majority of that series was done without reference.
Wow.
So I would have drawn everything till the end and I said, okay, I'm here now. Let me now look for references. Then I'll start looking. So Pinterest, I use Pinterest to look at a lot of references, but not necessarily for my day-to-day work. It's for my practice.
Oh, so, I see.
Because a lot of the day-to-day work I do, I might not really need Pinterest that much. Because again, remember I said I built a very good mental library.
Yeah.
And if you are working like someone like me who works both in So I work both in the tech space and both in the art part of things, like the movie making part of
Yeah.
things. So I can work on storyboards and stuff, right? So, but a vast majority of the time I work in the tech space. So tech illustrations, they don't necessarily need a lot of references if you have
Yeah.
a good mental
True.
library.
True.
To be,
True.
in my own opinion,
No, I agree with
right?
that.
It doesn't
I
need
really
a lot
agree
of
with
references.
that.
I know how to draw.
Yeah.
I know how to. I know how to draw a coin. If it's a coin, a pen, all of those things, right? So that's why I maybe skipped Pinterest, because Pinterest is like for my personal like consumption. I can't remember the last time I checked Pinterest like for a professional work I'm doing for someone else. It's rare.
Wow.
So yeah,
Well, you're not boss, so you be boss.
thank you.
4 years ago, so I remember one time when I was working,
Yeah,
kind of got a query from our product manager because I did not used to like
yeah,
drop things like mood board, reference, all this kind of thing before actually doing doing vectorization, like vectorizing illustrations. Yeah, because that thing you mentioned about you
yeah,
have a lot of mental library for your stuff. You can just move on the go.
yes.
So there were some works that I just can't move
Yeah.
on the go, and I remember
Yeah.
our product manager was like, she was like, no, Ufot, you need to always like update us. Let's see your sketch. Let's see what you're doing. Don't just draw. Don't just
Yeah.
go all in. It's
I
actually
kind of have that problem also.
yeah.
Yeah, I also forgot to mention, I have to put this in.
Okay.
Yeah, because I forgot to mention, I always have to make sure I find a way to just impute my wife in everything I'm saying, right? My wife is also a huge part of my creative work process.
Wow, that's
I'm
good.
telling
That's
you.
good.
And I'm
That's
not even
good.
kidding. Like, anytime I'm working on something, I always call her, baby girl, yeah, come and look at this thing.
Wow, that's
Does this
good.
work? If you're looking at this thing from a layman standpoint. So
Yeah.
that helps me a lot.
That's
Right? I
really
take
good.
feedback. Even when my brother was with me, right, I also asked him. So what we'll do is that if I ask two of them and they are not agreeing on a thing, I will
Yeah.
look for a third party and say, okay, this third person will break the tie. So
That's good.
yeah,
That's good.
thank
That's
you.
really good.
I forgot before I'll collect query.
That's really good. That's really, really good. That's good. So you mentioned that you don't
Yeah.
you don't want to be identified as more like a product designer anymore. You're now on the visual side of things. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes we know these words are interchangeable,
Yeah.
but I just want you to clarify that space for us.
Yeah.
When you say you're a visual designer, you know what's the niche now?
Okay. So for visuals, right, my niche is basically website design. So I love designing websites. I love designing interactive and playful websites. Then also you like the UI of, so I worked I think a year plus at a company where I was just a UI designer and illustrator. So all I was focused on is making sure that everything looks pretty, making sure the design system is consistent, making sure it is more like when you're interacting with the product, it's more engaging,
Yeah.
it's more fun. You know that someone was quite intentional about the entire visuals of this. So when I mean like I'm a visual designer, I still take on product projects, but I'll most likely collaborate with like a UX designer or a full-blown product designer and say, okay, handle all of this. I handle the design system. I work on illustrations when it be, okay, let's make this button this way. Let's make this model this way and all. So that is basically what I do. And to be honest, I don't have the stress for products.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie to you.
Yeah.
I don't have the stress like for just products itself.
Yeah.
People who are product designers, like I really do respect them, even if I'm one. But kudos, guys. But for me, I've left that for those who can do it.
True. My biggest project so far in product design, like actually it was a web.
Yeah.
It was a web app design. It was a web app design. It was really draining for me. That was my biggest project, so far. And that was like where I kind of paused, so to speak, on UI design. Like I just took a long pause. Maybe because I did the branding and the digital illustration set and the UI design. Like I did the whole thing design. I did the logo type, the brand, the whole full branding. Design the site itself, not just sites, but the whole web app pages itself, and did the illustration sets too. I think that was what kind of drained me. I just leave Wala for just leave for then at the time. But yeah, it's pretty much understandable.
Yeah, I have a project like that when I'm done with that project, I've been working on a project since last year. Like, there's a high tendency if you reach out to me for product related, they say, I say you should leave my DM quickly. Right, because it is still it is still draining. Right. So yeah, I get that.
Okay. If I look at your portfolio, if we take a look at your portfolio, what patterns would I notice in the kind of work that you take on? Because if we look at your Twitter page, particularly with the digital illustration now, right, we see a lot of welcoming illustrations, expressive illustrations, a lot of faith-based illustrations. Like, you're very expressive with your illustration. That's one thing I love about it. And from an illustrator standpoint, I see it differently. Like, nothing holds you back. And for me, I do believe digital art is the most expressive form of design I have ever practiced, in my opinion. It's the most expressive form of design. And I'm speaking as someone who does visual design, branding, UI design, motion graphic design, digital illustration. It's just really expressive. So when we check out your portfolio, what are like the range of what we're going to be seeing?
Okay. So first of all, I'd like to say I've been trying to complete my portfolio since 2023. Right? I keep on saying this year I will complete my portfolio. This year. So I also said this year I will complete my portfolio, but we're almost getting to half of the year I've not completed. But let's say I have a portfolio that is completed, right? So I think one of the things you will notice is what you mentioned. You will notice that I love a lot of expressive projects.
Oh yes,
so I like to push the boundaries a bit and see, okay, how far can I take this before it breaks? All right. So I like to push. So you find a lot of expressive projects. Then you also find the fact that I've worked in multiple industries. Right. Like, so because I'm an illustrator who is like a multidisciplinary illustrator. So I've worked in both in the marketing industry, worked in the fintech, worked in the creators industry. I've worked in multiple industries. So you will see a diversity of works that are in my portfolio. So that is even part of what I'm even having issues with, being able to collate projects together and put them on my portfolio. I've also worked in the Web3 space, by the way. I worked on a lot of stickers for people in like the Web3 space. So like, you will find diversity, you will find expression, you will find, I'm not necessarily so rigid. So I don't really think you'll find structure that much, right? But there might be a bit of structure there. I might not just be seeing it, right? But you find a lot of that in my portfolio. And fun fact, I sometimes forget the clients I've worked for, right? Like, I don't remember, I worked for these guys, right? Randomly. So I can sometimes forget because, again, I've worked in multiple industries. That's why I introduced myself as a multidisciplinary illustrator and then multidisciplinary designer at the same time, right? So because I worked in multiple industries. So I hope I gave like a befitting response.
Yeah, you did. Yeah. I mean,
all right. Thank you.
Some of us, we haven't still updated our portfolio to our most recent works. I think the last project I still have in my portfolio is one I did probably 3-4 years ago at the time of this recording. So I think it's every designer's biggest struggle, updating the portfolio. But hopefully we'll get there one day. We'll update our portfolio successfully to the most recent work.
That's why Twitter is my portfolio.
Yeah.
I just post my work on X and say, just take it like that. So I get, thank you.
At what point did you begin to realize that people were willing to pay well for your work? Like, what was that realization point for you? What was that? How did you come to discover that? So people can actually pay for this. This is something people can pay for. At what point did you discover that?
Okay, so did you say pay or pay well? Because
that's two different things.
I can tell you the pay fast. I can tell you the pay well.
Let's touch on both first. Let's start with the pay. Then we can talk on pay well. Yeah.
All right. So for pay, right? Fortunately for me, I had a lot of friends who were illustrators, like before I became an illustrator. So fun fact, I worked as a music producer for about, if I should count like till date, I worked as a professional music producer for this should make it like maybe the 12th year if I was still working as a producer. But let me say I worked for like 8 years before I fully.
You produce music?
Yes. And I would like to believe that I'm quite good because like, I wanted to be like the best of the best. I have a YouTube channel with like beats that I used to work on. Like, I took it quite seriously, right? So I had friends who were like illustrators, right? And they usually will help me with artworks and stuff. So I already started seeing them making money. I had a friend in particular, like, who was already making some good money from illustration. He was having like some foreign clients. They're willing to pay. Now I'm looking at it's not so much money, but let's just remember that we're in 2026 Nigeria. So imagine collecting
Yeah.
$100 for 2 illustrations, maybe like 7-8 years ago. It felt
Wow.
big, like
Wow.
to
Yeah.
where I
Yeah.
was at
Yeah.
that point in time. It felt like big money, right? Now I'm looking at it, I'm laughing, but it looked like big money.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just seen people collecting money, like good money with illustration. I remember when I wanted to get back into to design because I've always been interested in design. So I started working as a graphics designer. I was doing free works. Then I applied for a company in Lagos. I just moved to Lagos that time. And I remember doing, like, having the interview and stuff. I already suspected they would not pick me because they had a lot of graphics designers, and I'm sure they wanted someone who was exceptional at what they do. So I believe I was good though, but I wasn't exceptional. So I already could see from the countenance of the guy that was interviewing me. So but while we're about to end the interview, he was still scrolling and just saw like one small illustration I did. This should be early 2022, if I'm not mistaken. One small illustration. I was just trying my hands and I said, you made this? I said, I made it. I could see his face lit up. Unknowing to me, like they had a storyboard artist because it was a marketing agency who had been charging them a lot of money. And they were trying to force their in-house designers to become illustrators. And they're not really working. It wasn't working. So I said, I'll come on board. And I didn't know I was foolish that time. I worked for free for maybe, let's say, like three months-ish. Then they employed me and paid me a salary that is currently less than minimum wage.
Wow.
Like the current minimum wage of Nigeria. The salary was, in my own opinion, like it was money. People were willing to pay for something. I just started, right? So that's why I said pay or pay well. So I was doing that for a while, not until maybe later that year. I have a friend. He's a designer on X, but it's not really like he doesn't post that much. His name is Abiola Adeosun. Very like exceptional designer. So he asked me how much do I work on like cartoon illustrations at that point in time. And I told him, I would do it for him, 10,000 naira. Right. In my mind, it was big money. And he sent me a message that I should never ever charge somebody this kind of money for illustration making. That it is too little.
Yeah.
And he said that he will not pay me what he believes I'm worth, but he'll pay me way more than that. Then I remember I was just randomly sitting at the office when I just saw an alert of 30,000 naira. Right. And I just my face lit up. Someone can pay 30,000 naira for just one simple art that I do for fun. So then I started realizing that people are willing to pay. And he even went further to introduce me to one of my first like high paying client that was paying him like six figures. So then I realized that people could actually pay a lot for this. Then finally, there's one more story that I think I need to share. A couple, I think the next year, a company, a venture capitalist company reached out to, I was supposed to work for a very popular brand as an illustrator. They had agreed, but the CEO said they don't want to pay an illustrator. So they now recommended me, one of the guys on the team recommended me to a venture capitalist brand, company. And they reached out to me and said everything. I remember I charged them like high into 6 figures that time. I said, let me just throw the figure there. Yeah. And I was surprised I didn't really negotiate. I was already jubilating that, I had collected, I was about to collect good money. Then I heard that the previous illustrator charged them about $5,000. And if I charged them even $3,000, they would have accepted to collect the money. So just imagine going from celebrating, like till date, I'm actually still sad about that experience. Right. So that's when I realized that people were actually willing to pay a lot of money for what I was doing. And I didn't really know so much illustrators in this piece that I could really ask questions at that point in time. I was not even on X then. Like I had an X account, but I wasn't active at all. So
Wow. This is, I mean, I think every designer has this grass to grace story. You know, where this is how it happened, that's where it happened. Mine was Justin UG. I don't know if you know Justin UG. He's big. He reached out to me on Instagram a long time ago. Reached out to me on Instagram and he was like, hey, you need me to work on small branding thing for him. Just design his logo, Justin UG, design his logo type, and I'll just, just something small brand. And I was really excited. Wow, Justin UG. At the time, he wasn't even really, he was big then, right? But not as, big as we know him. Then he was still doing his small skits. He was even doing YouTube stuff with his, his team then and all. And out of excitement, I just said 30K. I was happy. I said 30,000 naira. I was really happy. Justin UG. I remember I was like, Justin UG. I said 30,000 there. So I did that design. I did the brand. I did the presentation. Did it on PowerPoint. Arranged all the slides. Emailed it to him, and he was like, "This is really the presentation." He was more particular about like the way you presented this. Like I didn't present with him. I didn't show him.
Yeah.
I just sent him the presentation, and he was like, "This is beautiful."
Yeah.
And he paid me 50,000 naira instead of 30,000 naira. 50,000 naira
Wow.
instead of 30,000 naira. That was my first time realizing, okay, this is good. And then I was just doing 5K logo, 5,000 naira logo and the likes of that. So when Justin Yuji paid me more than that, he really, he's really a great person to work with. He really is. I enjoyed every creative process. He didn't stress me for anything. And it was just a beautiful, that was a beautiful experience as well. Yeah, it is. So it's hearing your story and seeing how, how you're charging and how it is now. It's beautiful. It's really beautiful. And quite encouraging as well. Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate that.
I also want to give a disclaimer. It's not as if I charge like so much right now, but I'm better.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. So yeah.
I know you. Small.
It's time for a quick break. We will be right back after this break. Welcome back to the conversation.
When I started adding multiple skill sets to my craft, and my reasons for adding it were the job required it. So let me explain what I mean by that. So say I work on someone reached out and they say they want me to do a logo for them. I go on to do the logo, and they come back and they say, "Can you make this logo move? We need this logo animated." I'm like, "Yeah, sure, I'll try it. I'll learn." And I go on, I animate the logo.
Yeah.
And then they come back later on. "Can you design an app for that logo you designed for us? We want to use it for one of our apps." Like, "Yeah, sure." I remember that time I was using, what's this app or this software that we, there's this software we use for product design. I think they still use, I don't know, product design.
Is it XD? Adobe XD.
Adobe XD. Yeah. Thank you. That's it. I can forget Adobe XD so quick. Yeah, Adobe XD. So I used Adobe XD that time. I remember charging 50,000 naira to design 50 screens. Like, so one screen was 1,000. God of mercy. One screen was 1,000 naira to charge 50 screens, so they'll come back and so that's basically how this skill set added up. My basic was I just wanted to draw because I've been drawing since I was like 7. Right. So the client request made me add more skill. Right. It was project based. That's how I added more to my collection.
Skill, yeah.
Now, here's my question, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever been in a state where you feel torn in the sense that I just want to focus on one? I don't want to do this one. I don't want to do that one. This is what I love. This is my calling. I just want to focus on this one. Have you ever had that kind of feeling, and how did you handle it?
For me, right, I've always had that kind of feeling. Like, I think illustration is going to be like my forever love, right? And it's going to be my love forever. I don't want to hear what any other person is saying, right? So, but I remember, like, I've switched a lot of career paths, and a lot of them I switched because I was looking for money, right? I was just looking for ways to make more money. But I started getting to the point where I understood what people were looking for, or how I can fit into what people are looking for, right? So when I understood that, like, there's still always this desire just to say in my heart for me to learn more. Like, for example, I'm going to start learning motion. And motion designers, they should hide their laptops and come in for motion designers, right? So, but the reason why I'm learning that is not because I just want to start having a lot of it, because I want to niche down really into what I really love to do, which is like illustrations and making things move, making things come alive. So if you notice the kind of illustrations that I post on the internet, you know that I have a love for storytelling outside of just maybe an illustrative piece. So I have an entire page on Instagram. I think the name of the page is We Are the Anthonys, where it's a comic illustration, like a comic series of myself and my wife. Right. So I have that page. Like maybe I'll give us the link so that people can just check and see, right? So I have this love for storytelling, right? So I'm currently always in that state where I want to learn more. Right. I want to learn more, and I also want to make sure that I'm doing what I really love. And it can be quite tricky because as much as I want to do what I really love, I want to also make sure I'm doing what people want to like buy, what people want to purchase, what can make people more money. Right. So I always have to try and like blend both of that together. Right. Because I'm currently in that state. That's why I switched from being a product designer to try and being a visual designer and illustrator, because I know I will always have a love for visuals. So I was looking for a way to blend those two passions together and shed the weight of the things I really will not want to, which is mostly the technicality that comes with product design. I don't really love that part of it, right? So for those people who are technical, people have energy. Me, I'm not very technical in nature. I'm more creative in nature than technical. So I'm always looking for, to reiterate, I'm always looking for the new things to learn. Number one, I'm also looking for what I'm passionate about. And number three, I'm also looking for what people are actually willing to pay for. So if I can find the blend, like among those three things, I can find myself put myself in industries that are looking for what I'm actually, like I want to offer, because there's a proper research that has been done. Because for many people, the mistake many people make is that they want to just do their passion and they are not actually studying the market to see what the market is willing to purchase. True. And someone that is passionate that doesn't have money will just keep on, like at the end of the day, you will not do your passion. But if you are passionate and you can do like the appropriate research to see what people are looking for and look at maybe the biggest companies and the companies that you envision to work for, you are looking what you can always find a blend. To be honest, how I came to the title of being a visual designer, I remember I spent like an entire day going through designers at Meta, at Google and companies like that, and started looking for people who were doing the kind of things I would love. And I realized that most of them were creative directors, most of them were visual designers, and not many of them had the title of illustrators, even if they were illustrators. Even if you check their profession as an illustrator. So I had to now say, okay, what umbrella can I put myself where someone who is in Meta will look at my portfolio and say, okay, we are looking for this guy. Even if like it doesn't look like the title, but this is exactly what I want to do. So that was the way I was able to come to the middle and say, okay, many of them also add motion to it. And I say, okay, motion designers, hide your laptops and come in. Right. So that is the way I find that blend to look for, to basically niche down. Yeah. So I hope I was helpful. Right.
Yeah, very well actually. Yeah, very well. I mean, it goes on to beg the whole argument around being a specialist or being a generalist. It kind of touches that surface a bit. Yeah. Should I be a generalist? Should I be a specialist? I completely understand. Yeah, wearing many hats in the sense that it's not just because you just want to wear many hats.
In my opinion, so I wanted to say, like, in my opinion, I believe every good specialist is actually a generalist. In my opinion. Yeah. Like every good specialist is actually a generalist. Because that is how you can have like that cutting edge to your work when people see it and say, this guy knows what he's doing. Like the way he placed his typography like on this comic. Yeah. He knows exactly what he's doing, right? So in my opinion, before you say you are a specialist, try and just touch grass in multiple areas, right? Then you can now find your specialty and you can now thrive.
Beautiful, actually. Beautiful. My next question is about when you take on projects, right? When you take on projects, which, this may sound weird, but which part of you wants to lead that project, irrespective of the project? Is it the visual designer part or the digital or the illustrator part? Which part wants to take charge of that project?
So this is quite tricky, right? So I will, again, like I'm a sucker for illustration. I will always love for like the illustration part to take lead. But even in illustration, people who do like a lot of digital art, comic art, maybe concept artists and the like, right? There is the graphics design part of it. So, and what like illustrators will call graphic designers, those illustrators who don't work in tech will call graphics design. It looks totally different from what a normal graphics designer will call graphics design. So for a lot of illustrators that will call themselves, like they say, this is the graphics design part of it. They are talking about being able to present concepts. That's what they are thinking about. How can I present the concept appropriately? So they will tell this is the design part of it. So it's not just drawing. They are designing the entire experience to look a certain way. right? And we are also presenting that experience to look a certain way. So the reason why I'm saying that is that as much as my Illustrator part, I would like to say my Illustrator part want to take lead, I will forever be like a designer, right? Like all of us are designers, even if you're an illustrator. It's a form of design, right? So I can't say Illustrator will take lead, even if I want that. Like I'm always thinking as a designer, I'm always thinking about how I'm going to, even if it's just an illustration project, how am I going to present this project very well, like visually that is pleasing, that is appealing. So hence why you will notice that in a lot of my work, I was so shocked when I got compliments from like a lot of guys I look up to that they love how colorful and expressive my work is, Abi. Because that has always been what I struggled with mentally, right? So the reason I'm saying that is that you will notice even in my work, I like to present like the illustrations a certain way. So even if it's a different style, someone can still look and say, this looks like something Edwin will do. You get so because I'm thinking about it as a designer holistically. I'm thinking about my brand as a person. So even when I'm putting out work, the way I word like my content, the way I present the illustrations, or I just want it to speak like from a visual standpoint. So the visual covers everything from illustration to visual design to brand and whatsoever. So
Awesome. Speaking of style, speaking of illustration style, you do have a very unique style. Like you don't even need to watermark your illustrations. Once I see it, I know it. Like it's that unique. You and Olamide, I'm sure you know Olamide Agumbiade. Once I see Olamide,
I was just thinking about him in my head before you said him.
Once I see, once there was one time I made an illustration, but in Olamide's style. I think that was when he recently brought that style out. I made an illustration in Olamide's style, and someone commented and tagged him that is this guy one of your students and all, making so that he works really looks like he's. Then he came to say, no, but that's his style. His style is quite unique. Your style is so unique. Even if I don't even need to see who posted it. I just, when I see your work, I know it. Now, here's my question. How did you find that style? Speaking of style, how did you find your art style? Because finding art style is one of those big things that digital illustrators always look out for. I want to find my art style. Were you in pursuit of an art style, or did you just come, how did you find it basically?
This art style, when you were speaking, I was thinking of Olamide in my head, because I remember really when I started illustrating, when we met physically, I told him this, which he also didn't believe. I looked up to him, like, it was like my idol. Like, I looked like, if I can touch the hem of this guy's garments, right? So I was looking at his style also. And I had a couple of other illustrators that I was looking at their style also, right? And I did my best. I was trying to copy, trying to blend multiple styles to form a unique style. Then all of a sudden, one day, people just started telling me I had this style. It was quite surprising. People just started telling me that you have a style. If we see your illustration, we know you are the one. Like, you're the one that made it, right? And I realized something, because many times I like to reverse engineer how I got somewhere. Right. So I started asking myself, how did I actually form this style? First of all, it was not intentional, right? Like, it wasn't intentional. That is the first thing I have to say. Then the second thing I also have to say is that each and every one of us are uniquely created, right? And anything we actually lay our hands to do, our uniqueness will show like if we wait long enough, the uniqueness that we have in us will show. But for many people who you seem to like are copycats, it is because they are not patient enough to just wait and trust the process. That is why they have a style that is similar to someone. So it takes more effort to copy someone as a creative than for you to actually have your style, if we are honest. You have to consciously look at someone's work and just keep on trying to copy it. But for you to actually say your style looks like this person. But for the vast majority of us who have unique styles, we didn't try to copy one person. We just kept on feeding ourselves with a lot of knowledge. And over time, our preferences just formed naturally. The way you draw hands will form naturally. The way you draw eyes will form naturally. The way you draw head. But the mistake I believe many illustrators make is that you just started illustrating. You can't draw a straight circle. You want to find the style. It's the problem. Right? A lot of people do not actually sit down to learn the fundamentals like ground up. I can't count the amount of times I go back to say how to learn the fundamentals, because if you can learn the fundamentals from ground up, no single person can actually copy another art, like style to style. professionals can spot the difference, which means you have the way you will draw your stroke. You have the way you are thinking about it, because the next person has like a different experience in life. So the way you approach everything you lay your hands to do, it is going to be totally different from the next person. So what I would advise people who are trying to look for a style to do is that don't focus on finding like an art style. Feed yourself with a lot of illustrations from different artists. One. Number two, make sure you try to sharpen your skill to be good enough. Your style will form naturally. I'm also not saying that there's no intentionality, because one of the best comments I've ever gotten as an illustrator is someone who commented and say, "I love the way you draw your hands." That's like the best. I'll go and look for that with screenshot it and make a frame of it, because like
wow.
Because that was like a comment from me, like a compliment. So the moment I noticed he say he loved the way I draw my hands, I started looking at the style at which I draw my hands, and I started being more intentional about it in every artwork. So there's still an intentionality part of it, right? But the main focus should be, number one, feeding your eyes with a lot of artists who you really look up to, who are good. Number two, just making sure you sharpen your skill. You form your style naturally. It's going to come like naturally to you. So yeah, thank you. Then I'm also like a very playful person outside like being serious. So maybe that's why my illustrations look very playful. So my character just entered into it. Yeah. Thank you.
Beautiful. Oh yes, no, really beautiful. Really, really beautiful. Because again, I mean, I've said this before, but your illustrations are so expressive. Like it's like you're free. You just do it. You know, it's just free. So you do vector art and you do, what we call digital art. So you will even understand this better. Vector art feels very rigid because it's strokes, But if you're drawing like how you draw on your Procreate, it's more, it's expressive, it's free. You can bend those textures and those strokes. That's how I see your artwork. Yeah. They're expressive, they're free, they're colorful. They look alive. Yeah, no, seriously, I really mean this. They look alive. I'm not trying to patronize you. It's really what it is. You don't just do art. You express yourself through that art. And thank you. No, honestly, thank you. See, I go talk now. You go be like, say, I want the wine. But really, really, thank you. No, your artworks are expressively beautiful. Truly, they are.
Thank you.
Truly, they are.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to add that I also really love storytelling, right? Maybe that is why also I love like being able to tell story with art. Story, like I mentioned it before, so I think it helps also. I really love trying to tell a story, even if it's like a single image. Let me just tell a bit of the story with it. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, beautiful work. Have you ever had to position yourself differently to clients because of your different skill sets? In the sense that, I'm not gonna carry 3-person work, come pay me 1 person salary or 1 person work, because have you ever had to do that? And how was that experience?
So to be honest, right, I'm still fighting with a lot of clients till date. I'm trying to find a balance to do that, right? Because there's a part of me who wants to see the projects like come out excellently well. And there's a part of me who is also a business person, and I want to make sure I'm not cheated. Right. True. So I have that two parts that they're always fighting. So I'll find myself wanting to go like above and beyond many times for clients. And when I'm also now trying to just be strict, right, and say, okay, you know what, I'm going to do the best I can, but I'm not going to add what is not in our contract. I find myself also having to fight with a lot of clients, right? Because maybe I'm going from one extreme to the other extreme, right? So, but when it comes to like positioning myself, right, I'm trying to think about it, it is still even an ongoing process. That's why you see I changed my title, changed like the kinds of things I used to post because of like where I'm trying to position myself to. And there's a funny story, by the way. There's a time a client reached out to me for like a brand design project, but I don't do like full on brand design and logo design. I usually would just recommend. So I recommended this person to someone else. And the next time the guy reached out, I think for an engineer or so, that the guy you recommended to me did very well. Looking for an engineer. And when we were talking, the guy just said, wait, you are a designer. I didn't know that you are like a product designer. I thought you're just an illustrator and I think just illustration and maybe brand design. I say, no, that you took my project and you gave it to someone else, right? I've had that divide, right? But it still boils down to what I was saying initially with trying to find out what I really want to do and what I need to make money from, right? So in positioning myself, I'm trying to position myself like in like a dual positioning, right? So in the sense that people know that I design, visual design and Illustrator, right? But at the same time, I'm also trying to be very, very clear in communication when I'm speaking with clients that this is what I'm going to do for you. Don't expect that I'm going to do this other thing. If you want to do this other thing, you have to pay this other thing for it. I don't know if you get me right. So I
Yes.
always have to be
Very
clear.
well.
I'm trying my best to be very clear in communication that this is what I can do, this is what I can do, and anything I can't do and I'm not willing to learn, I just have to let the client, I can't do this. And many times I don't even like to sublet. I'll just recommend you to someone else who can do the work and say, this guy will do it. Like, just take my word for it. And let this guy handle everything, right? And I think there was a time we almost had like a project where I tell you that I can easily tell you I can do this thing, but I can't. This person can, right? Because I want to make sure that our communication is as open and clear as possible. I'm not telling you that, oh, the reason why I'm trying to look for an excuse because there's someone that is on the line. So I try my best these days to give a clear communication when the client reach out to me and say, this is what I can do. This is what I can do. This is what I cannot do. If you want me to do this, I can, but you just know that I'm going to sublet it to someone else. Are you okay with this? That's what I'm doing. But I've not found the balance. So it's only in theory because I still fight with clients like once every AK market day. I'll not be waiting you employ me for this one. Sure you get, right? So
that's beautiful.
Thank you.
No, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I would definitely, take notes from that seriously because I find myself in states where I've had people have actually reached out to me to work on product design gig because they know, well, if illustration is needed, obviously to be needed, the first goes to runner, those kind of things, So yeah, that's beautiful the way you handle that. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I want to touch on your creative process, right? So if a client reached out to you on to work on a project, what's your creative process like from start to finish?
Start to finish. So I think I would just handle it from like an Illustrator point of view, right? So I think one of the first things I do, so when I say a client reaches out to me, I first of all ask like for a brief and all. And once I get the brief, even before we agree on like money and like how the rules of engagement, right? I already start feeding my eyes with a lot of works that looks exactly like what that project will entail. So I started going on like looking for social media accounts, companies and the likes that will do such work, right? So once I start feeding myself with that, I'm already having like behind the like my mind, like at the back of my mind, this might be the direction I want to go. And once the client say, depending on the project, some projects I even start working on it before the client even we agree. The client is not aware because I want to give like a head start to be able to be very expressive with it, right? So, but once the client gives a go ahead, one of the first things I do, I'm not really, I will not say a fan. I don't necessarily gather mood boards very well, right? I'm not good at gathering mood boards, right? I will rather just, again, feed my brain a lot. And while I'm working, I'm gathering mood board as I am working, not before I work. Right. So once I start the project, one of the first things I would do is, if it's a like illustration project is the case study, I work on sketches, send the sketches to the client. Like, what do you think about this? This is the direction I'm thinking about. I'm thinking of going this direction because I want to also eliminate the amount of feedbacks that I will be getting. Right. So I do a lot of that. Then, once we are done with the sketch phase, one of the things I do, I flesh out the entire project. And I also like to let clients know that this is the process. You give feedback, one feedback at this stage, this feedback, that feedback, and we are good. So once like I'm done, we've agreed on the sketch and everything. The next thing I usually do is start fleshing it out. And I like sending screenshots to the client. If we have like a channel, a WhatsApp group or something, I'll send screenshots to show you the progress. That is what I'm doing, this is what I'm doing, so that you can give feedbacks when there is need for that, right? Because like I noticed that for a lot of us designers and illustrators or whatsoever creative space we are in, feedback is something that we can struggle with a lot. So I want to eliminate the amount of feedbacks I'm getting, right, at different stages, so that I will not get to the end of the illustration. You are giving me feedback that you're supposed to give me at the beginning of the illustration. So once we are done and we are good with that, you like everything, one of the things I'll do is start cleaning up the project, making sure like I'm able to deliver it appropriately, right? Then hand it over. And so that is basically, it's not something, then I remember mentioning the other time that I usually take a lot of feedback from other people that are not the client. So that in case there is like, we are at like logheads with each other, right? I can give you data to show that I showed this design to 12 people. This was also amount of people said, this person is not a designer, this person is this. Like, I would like to take that feedback. Then I also like to take professional feedback and let you know that even professionals vet this. You get then. I forgot to mention something. I use ChatGPT a lot. A lot. I can't like, I will not lie, but I don't use ChatGPT for oh, come up with this art for me necessarily. Like, I use it for feedback, right? To ask feedback, I just send like the art to ChatGPT and say, okay, what do you think about this? And many times I don't like to give context,
Yeah.
right, to it. And the reason why I don't give context is so that I will see if I'm communicating appropriately, because the vast majority of the work I do is communications. It's basically creative comms, right? Like a sector of it. So I want to make sure if someone is not being emotional, who doesn't have like a background story to what I'm doing, like what can you deduce from this art? And from the feedback I get, I now take that and work on it better. And sometimes if I have like a total blocker and I don't know what to do, I just provide the document and say, what do you think? Then bounce off ideas if I can get something great. So there are times where I don't have to use ChatGPT for anything. Everything just flows appropriately. There are times where I just usually ask questions because I want to make sure I'm getting the appropriate feedback, right? And making sure I'm communicating appropriately. So that's basically how like my creative process is. Nothing too special.
Oh no, that's actually
Just a lot of
special.
work.
That's it's quite unique.
It's time for a quick break. We will be right back after this break. Welcome back to the conversation.
There's something you said about how that you want to eliminate
Yeah.
feedback that you can get now, so you are carrying your clients along
Yeah.
as you go on with the project. That's actually a very beautiful thing to do, because for digital illustrations, you don't want to wait till the end after,
Yes.
adding line art, colors,
Thank
shadows, and everything, then coming to realize that, we wanted the hand to be like this
Exactly.
one, but you did the hand to be like, you don't want to realize that at the end. So yes,
Exactly.
it's really beautiful. Yeah, really
Yeah.
beautiful. What's the most difficult phase of your journey so far?
This is difficult though. I'm trying to think what has been the most difficult phase. I think the first most difficult phase is the learning part of it. That is super extremely difficult. I can't count the amount of times I felt like taking my laptop and hitting it on the floor, right? Because it is not just working out. Basically, there is something, and there's something in illustration. I don't know like the proper names for it, where your eyes go faster than your hands, right? So your eyes can spot the error, but your hands cannot necessarily correct it, right? Which is not a bad thing, but I struggle with that a lot, that I can see that it is wrong, but I can't just correct it. So I have a lot of that. Like I go through a lot of that many times where it's very just difficult. I know what I want to achieve. I'm seeing it. I'm seeing where the errors are, but I can't correct it. So that is extremely difficult, because for me, that is the first most difficult thing. If I should do it in order, being able to just learn and keep on learning and keep on learning and not going obsolete. Then the second most difficult thing I don't think it's finding clients. It should be actually working with clients and doing my best to maintain my reputation, right? At the same time, delivering appropriate work. So one of the things I do to make sure I maintain, which is quite difficult, I do a lot of refunds, to be quite honest. If I notice there's a friction, I just like to return the money, which like I've been called out on it, right? That many times saying, don't just don't just say you want to refund. And I'm not saying that I'm refunding because I'm like one very rich guy, but I rather a good name is actually better than whatsoever.
True.
Like a good name matters a lot to me. So I rather just take the L, refund the money, which is quite difficult, handling clients and getting to realize that like we are all human beings, and I personally have my shortcomings, which many times when you are dealing with a lot of people, most especially when you're a freelancer, it will happen a lot. So some of the things that bother me the most, other than learning, is basically just handling and dealing with clients and managing conflicts when like there's a conflict of interest. So that is quite difficult. Maybe because I'm even facing a similar difficulty right now. So maybe it's just coming in my head, right? So yeah. So those are the most difficult things, like this thing. Then there's also the part where I don't want to drink Gary. So I have to balance between collecting what I'm worth and collecting what I need to use and eat. So that is also extremely difficult, if I'll be honest, right? Like, because there are certain times where you need this money. You need the money. But the money is not exactly what you want, what you deserve to collect. So you have to now battle with, should I just eat now? Right? And forget about like what my future will be, or should I stay hungry now and now focus like on my future? So many times, because for me it's a bit more difficult because I'm not a singular person. Right, I also have like a wife and all, right? So it's usually a conversation we'll both have that. I bet my wife is always, she's like my MVP. She's the one say, forget the money. She's not what you are what. We drink garri for completely what then she should go to
Oh
where,
my goodness, that's
right? So
beautiful.
that
Yeah,
that is like in order of priority,
yeah,
learning
yeah.
number one, handling and dealing with clients. And because many times clients will mirror your shortcomings to you, then finally being able to
Yeah.
price yourself appropriately, choosing when to drink garri and when to and focus on the future, or when to just eat chicken now and drink garri, probably drink garri in the future. So yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. You're so the way you answer these questions are just very soothing, refreshing, and it's really admirable. It's something to learn from.
Thank you.
Truly, handling this situation, because truly these are really the hurdles and the struggles
Thank you.
that creatives face in our industry, particularly with freelancers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the freedom that comes with being a
Yeah.
freelancer is not one that is flying and traveling and all in this part of the world, at least I would say. So these hurdles, the struggles, this handling
Especially
clients,
actually.
yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful how you handle all of this. Then I appreciate that. I appreciate that answer. I want to touch a bit on pricing. All right, how do you price for your work? I mean, not you in particular, but pricing illustration can be a very difficult
Yeah,
task,
but how
right? So yeah, so what
is
what
actually
would you
quite difficult.
advise? Yeah, what would you advise to be? This is the structure illustrators, particularly illustrators, to this is the what I will advise illustrators should
Yeah.
follow for a pricing structure. How would you advise
Yeah.
that?
First of all, I want to say that I'm not an expert at this. Right? I'm also failing a lot. But I can give like advices, places where I failed and what I believe illustrators, how I believe illustrators should price, right, your work.
Yeah.
So there's something, I think it was Olamide that I think he posted it on his WhatsApp. He did like a long thread about it, is that you have to calculate, and I'm just going to be giving, you have to calculate how long it's going to take you to work on this, number one, right? If while you are working on this, you can work on other projects. Number two, the reason why I'm saying this matter, these things I mentioned, they matter a lot. How long will it take you if you have the liberty to work on other projects? And I'm not saying that you are like they are buying your time. I'm just saying, can you work on this while working on other projects? Right? So how long? And like if you can work on another project, then ask yourself, what is it going to cost you? We are in Nigeria, so I'll try my best to be realistic. Your fuel money,
Yeah.
your data money, all of that, what is it going to cost you for the period of time you are going to work on this project, right? Then, if you are going to be working on this project for a week now, what are you going to be eating for this week, right? Like, I'm just throwing in the like, what are you going to be eating for this week? Remember I said number one, like, how long is it going to take you? Number two, can you work on other stuff? So if you are working on other projects, you might want to be lenient about what you will eat and some of those other extra things, because you have like the means to recoup that, right? But if you are working on this project, so you have to know that for the period of time that you are working on this project must be able to like answer to your basic needs, like funding the project in itself, your fuel money, the data money, if you are going to be using resources, handling that, right? Then if you are putting that, once you got, let's say the money is 50,000 naira for all of the things I've mentioned, you also want to now ask yourself that this artwork that I'm going to be presenting to this client, what is it worth to the client? I just learned this of late. I almost worked for a client abroad where I gave them like a pricing. This one I'm going to be like open and say like the terms. So I gave them and I sent it to the guy who recommended me, and the guy corrected the invoice and sent it back, and he added a fee there that I'd never seen before. I think Market Use It Right or something. I can't even remember what it's called, but it basically says I'm charging you for being able to resell my illustration, right? Like he's basically saying I should always charge people to be able to minus the amount that is being paid, which is for the work itself. But if you are going to be able to use this illustration and resell it, you will pay an extra fee on it. And it should have been something that occurred to me for a while. But it didn't occur to me, but I took a very, like, it was a learning moment for me in the sense that I realized that minus the fact that I'm actually doing work, there are still other legalities around the work that I'm doing, right? And I should always make sure that is put into consideration. Now, back to what I was saying with like being able to first of all, know how long it's going to take, what it's going to cost me, then add a fee on top because I want to make sure I'm making profits. Because I can be collecting, let's say, 200,000 naira per illustration. My profit may be 20,000 naira, right? And one should always consider that while charging a client. So that is one part of it. Another thing that you might want to do is that for a lot of for a lot of foreign illustrators, they actually, like, their prices are open. Their prices are not necessarily hidden,
True.
like how much they charge.
Hidden.
So what
Yeah,
you might
true.
want to do is also look at a lot of guys and see what the standard is. Then also look at your country, right? And see how you can also now charge, right? Because I believe there are two pricing model I give. You also want to look at what the industry standard is, right? Look for people who are already in your field and see how much they are pricing, because no one actually came out and said this is the industry standard price. No human actually just came up and made that
Yeah,
up, right?
true.
Most especially
Yeah.
for those of us who are in fields that are more arts and design related, that we don't necessarily have a structure behind it, right? Like, so you want to look at that and see the country, because I price in two ways. So I can price you if you are a Nigerian client. As much as I want to charge you so much, I will still charge you what I believe I'm worth, right? But I'll make sure I charge you something that you can also afford, even if I want to be properly paid. Then that is my own model. I'm not giving it as a prescription, right? Then for foreign clients, I also want to make sure where the client is charging me for. The prices are not so different, if I'm honest.
Okay.
Right, but I also want to make sure the prices are tailored, like in a language that you best understand. Right, so that is the way I look at it. Then I might go into some figures. Like, for example, there's a different amount if you're like a digital artist and you charge for portrait. It's different amounts for half portrait, different amounts for full, like maybe like bust, call it bust picture. There's different amounts for, so you want to know what that price is, have like the price range. Then if you want a mural now, for example, you want, because I've also had clients who say we want 5 illustrations. I say no. What kinds of illustration do you want? It's not the number that matters, it's the amount of work that goes into it. So if they are large illustrations, I will charge you different for a large illustration. If they are small illustration, I'll charge you different. And I always want to make sure that it is something that is actually reasonable, to be quite honest. Right? Like, I always want to make sure it's something that's quite, but once all of those things I mentioned from the get-go is checked, you've checked them out and you see how much you are spending, like how long it will take to do. You also want to make sure that money can sustain you for that long if that is the only project. But if you're having other projects, you might be a bit flexible. But it's always at most advisable that you have a fixed pricing model. And when someone comes to you with something that is unique, you now build off of the uniqueness of what you are building. So I can't really go into a specific figures, but that should help one, because that is like a formula you can use that you price yourself appropriately. So thank you. I hope I was helpful, because we are usually very vague about this money thing. We have the reason so that some people will not kidnap us on the way. So,
no, actually, very true, very helpful. Actually.
Yeah, so, but I'm just giving a formula that you can follow.
It's true, because pricing in the design industry as a whole, particularly within our Nigerian demography, is not an easy conversation. Number two, it's always different for digital illustrators. Because the brand designers can somehow know how to structure that payment. Okay, maybe for one logo, maybe I'm charging 2.5. If you're basically, they can structure that payment for brand design, but it can be very tricky when it comes to illustrations. So
then I can give a bit of figures. I can give a bit of figures, right, to help people.
Yeah, please do.
So if you are charging for, so a lot of artists, the minimum you should charge, depending on like the kind of work you are doing, most especially for those people who are not vectors illustrations, right? So you should realize that for line art, you can charge anything from $10 for just line art illustration. Then for, let's say, with colors, all right, you can charge anything from like $20, $25, because we are trying our best to be reasonable, right? Then there's a point where people don't just pay for. Then if you want like full images used to go for like maybe $150 to like $200. Background illustrations used to go for like $200 upwards and all. So these are just like base points you can look at. Then you also might want to also have like a pack. So a pack of 10, instead of charging you, let's say it's a line art for $15, instead of charging you $150, I can say for a pack of 10, I'll charge you $130 for it. So you might want to give like little discounts off the top if you are giving packs. So it also helps you sell for clients to want to get like a bundle. But people say, okay, I'm getting so amount of discount. We might not need 10 illustrations, but we need 5. But we can just always have it just in case we need the remaining 10. Okay, look for illustrations to give like this person, right? Then you should also know that there's a point where you will come to where people are not paying for the amount of work you are doing. They are paying for who you are. Which this is where I'm trying to get to. Where you are paying for what
you're already there now.
That's even if I draw like a straight line and I put my watermark, They will just say that because it's this guy,
Yeah.
let's actually charge this amount of money, right? And with that, that's where you can actually make like a very good amount of money because people are paying for your person rather than just paying for your technical know-how. But you have to be technically very good, then build your brand to the point where people can now pay that.
Beautiful. Really beautiful. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you for putting figures to, this abstract pricing that we've always
Thank you.
talked about on the internet, particularly within our demography. Beautiful. I have about 2 more questions, but I want to ask this one first. What's something about your career that people on the outside don't see and they don't understand? They just they look at your work and like, this is easy, this is beautiful, but they don't get the big picture. They don't see it. They don't understand it. What's something about that for you?
Yeah, I think for me it is the amount of YouTube tutorials that go into like my work. So I've had people reach out to me on X and say, "Oh, please, can you recommend?" I say, "Me, I can't recommend to you because my learning is not a very curated learning. I binge watch a lot of learning tutorials, like a lot. I'm talking about my iPad always has at least 300 videos saved on it." And I can tell you I've maybe watched about maybe 200 of them per time. So once like I realize that this tutorial, I've watched it, I've learned, I might need it again. I leave it on my iPad. If I know that I might not need it again, I delete it. So I should have watched at least in the past 4 years, at least 5,000 to like 10,000 tutorials. At least. That is me even being like very modest in the amount. So that amount of work that goes into it is something people don't see. And the amount of frustration that actually also goes, because it's something we don't share many times. Many people see the finished works and they think that is how like it just is, right? But there is a lot of work that actually goes, like a lot of frustration that goes into the finished piece. Because many of us come on Twitter to share our wins, not necessarily our struggles. Yeah. So people see the struggle and say, I wish I can, like see the wins and say, I wish I can be like this. So there's a lot of struggles that go into it. Like every market day, I question whether I'm good at coloring. That one is a constant care. I question my ability to use colors. I question my color theory a lot. I can't count how much. Like I learn color theory at least once every month. I go back to it again. So that frustration, like that part of it, people don't see it. So people see what is completed, but behind every successful artist is actually a lot of struggles. And it's not past struggles; they are current struggles they go through that they might not share on the internet. And you just see the finished work, and you might want to be frustrated and leave. So thank you.
Yeah, true, beautiful, true. Actually, the internet is one of those spaces. I love to say this. I mean, I probably should tweet it. On Twitter, everybody's perfect. On X, everybody's perfect. That's what we share. We don't share the hurdles, the struggles, the stress of the whole matter. So that's beautiful. It's beautiful. So if you see someone who is talented, they're really talented at their craft, but they're struggling to turn their creativity into something marketable, to something tangible. So basically, someone who understands, who knows how to draw, who knows how to design, but they don't know the business part of things. What's your process that you can guide them so they don't get to feel they don't get to be used or be cheated in the industry? How would you guide such a person?
First of all, I want to say there is always someone that is doing something similar to what you are doing who you can learn from. There is always someone. I can't actually, there's always someone. Once you search hard enough, you see someone who is already doing something similar to what you are doing. There's someone I really look up to. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, right? It's Anthony. He's a very popular digital artist. Right? I can't pronounce his last name and I don't want to...
AA. I think it's
yes.
initials AA.
Yes, AA, right? I don't want to destroy... Yes, I don't want to destroy his last name, right? Yeah. And I'm seeing how he does the most simple, digital, not simple in the sense that most of his works are portraits. But that guy has made so much money because sometimes I have him calculate the amount of money he has made from the sales that he's making. I'm like, this guy is making money.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't want to know what the process, but he's making the money, right? So there's always someone that is doing something. And I think for him, minus the fact that he's an exceptional artist, he has been able to brand himself in ways that people will buy his art just because I can guarantee you that as good as he is, there are artists that are not that popular in Nigeria and are doing as much and even more. For all of us, that is the case.
Yeah.
Right?
True.
But if you can study what people are already doing, right, you can actually do the studies and say, oh, these people are doing this, and this. What you can now do in return is now ask yourself that, like, among these things these guys are doing, what can I do? Right? And the second question you have to also ask yourself is, who needs this thing that I'm doing? Right? If you're an illustrator, let's say you are very good at concept art. What industry needs concept art? What industries need vector illustrations? What industry needs background illustration? What industry needs character design? But once you ask yourself that question, nothing you want to do is visibility. Like, you can't be a 21st century creative and not try your best to be visible.
Yeah.
Except you have like some back channel you are making money. But the fact that you are listening to this advice I'm giving you, you are obviously not making money yet as the person listening to me, right? So you also want to be visible. You want to post your work as much as possible.
Yeah.
Then you also want to study from those who you see that are very good, how they also post their work. How? The posting is not just what matters, how they also post their work. You also want to do that, right? Then there's something that is also very important that you want to curate your social media accounts to be around the people who are doing something similar and the people who need what you are doing. Doing that, you have curated, you are placing your work in the eyes of those who are willing to pay for it.
Yeah.
So for every field is different. Some field is X, some field is maybe Fiverr, Upwork, whatsoever. But you also always want to find where where your market is and position yourself to be in the right market, right? Because you actually don't want to be a starving artist, right? So you also want to make sure that whatsoever introverted state you have, you can be mysterious. Because for a long time on X, I was mysterious. People didn't know my face.
Yeah, true.
Right? So you can be mysterious. So being mysterious doesn't have to be that you don't post at all. Except hunger is going to, you know, when the Bible says a little sleep, a little slumber, this hunger will catch you like last man. Right?
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that you like on the internet, you make sure you share your work. So to just retract, right? I said number one, there's always someone who is doing something similar to what you are doing. You want to follow the such people to see how they are able to price themselves, how they are able to make money. By the way, there's an illustrator I saw on the internet. He does NFT illustrations. He doesn't do anything so serious other than just draw NFT character. And he's building an apartment.
Wow.
I think in Abuja. So it's something I can see because he's posting it on the internet, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm now asking myself that when will I buy land like this to this my artwork? Then I went on his page and then I went on his page and I saw that he had like a link out his website, and I'm seeing the amount of money he's charging for his artworks and his target audience, and I'm telling myself that if I charge people four clients for this amount of money this guy is charging, which way I can buy land, probably somewhere in some good tell or one far place that I can afford to buy land, right? So it's because I'm looking at other people who are doing the same things that I'm doing, right? I can now start knowing how to reposition myself to make the money. So that is the first thing I say: follow those who know roads, follow those who through faith and patience obtain the promise. You follow them like that, right?
Yeah.
Then after that, one of the next thing you want to do is surround yourself with the people, like people who you want to be, and those who are looking for the services you want to offer. And the final thing I'm saying is that you always want to make sure that you sell yourself. Don't sell yourself short. You want to have like a persona like you have on the internet. People should be able to recognize your brand anywhere. That you get to the point where you can now put a simple artwork and people are pricing it $5,000, $10,000 and all, right? So but there's that gap. And I think finally what I always want to tell people is that you also want to learn marketing as a designer. Learn marketing, and you might not want to learn it to be like a marketing specialist. Then learn it. Learn how to hack every social media platform, from Instagram to, of late I've been focusing a lot on my Instagram. I've been seeing traction. At the point in time I was a social media manager. Wow. Because I also wanted to learn how to market myself. And so you want to learn marketing, like learn it, follow marketers, follow Martin. Then lastly, I think you don't want to also be the kind of person who only learns what he's interested in. You also want to study far and study wide. Learn about other people's fields. Study. You will not know the day when that is going to come in really handy. Where the conversation you are going to be having with someone is in that direction. So study far, study wide, because it affects you whether you know it or not. So yeah, thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful, Edwin. Honestly, beautiful. This episode has really been insightful, an eye opener. I mean, I've had conversations with creatives from different fields, but particularly with illustrators. I am an illustrator. I mean, I know I do a lot of stuff. I love to tell people I'm a full stack creative because of the multidisciplinary parts that I apply. But if there was ever going to be a civil war in the tech community, I'm standing with digital. I'm standing with illustrators.
And myself,
But your insights, your work process, your thought process has been very insightful. This conversation has been very insightful. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate. Really appreciate. I'm sure that this would be helpful to many creatives, designers, illustrators who would get to listen to this episode and watch this. Thank you. I appreciate it.
You are listening to Designstration podcast with Ufot Ubon. Design plus illustration equals Designstration.